comes through the agreed Parliament formula. The Scottish Government could just have a mechanism by which they would reimburse Scottish taxpayers. It could also give the councils the opportunity to charge their own land types rates by designating all areas of Scottish Government responsibility as local. It could exempt and relieve certain land holdings, for example, charities and public land from annual ground rent. And that's a decision for the policymakers and the politicians and civic Scotland in general. So the options under independence are: we don't rely on oil revenues, we still have them, but we don't rely on them. We don't rely on the perceived largesse of the UK taxpayer. We don't increase personal or business taxation. We allow for an increase in public revenue, which we require. We can avoid government borrowing. It's not affected with the currency we use, and it gives Scotland control over its economy. And this is really the thing which I think we need to do and achieve and to demonstrate in order to give confidence to the doubting Thomases amongst us that we are well more than able to fund our public services. So, got a website, www.annualgroundrent.com. If you are interested in registering, please do so, or if you get individual questions that come to mind later on, feel free to email me at my office address, graeme@conveyancingdirect.co.uk. Now, this is also Scotland's geological map. And the thing is that most people's title deeds in Scotland, you don't own the actual minerals under your house, in the ground under your house, they belong to somebody else. It might be the former estate of which your house maybe was formerly part. It might be the Church of Scotland. It might be your local authority who own the mineral rights. But there would be a possibility that you could actually charge a separate annual ground rent on the mineral rights, the areas that were held in mineral rights too, if it was thought that this was something which we as a country decided would be beneficial and right. And this is probably my favourite slide, because this is Scotland's exclusive economic area. Now this is determined by basic international law, and everything within that red area is subject to Scots law. So this is part of the territory of Scotland. And of course, under the sea is the seabed, is the land. So you could actually consider charging an annual ground rent on the seabed, and it would be open to the Scottish Government, for example, to allocate every Scot, if they wished, a small area of that seabed, where you would pay a very modest annual ground rent every year, and if in the fullness of time there was some development or exploration or whatever that benefited, then people could benefit from their holding. But as you'll see, that economic area, that's about 4 or 5 times greater than the actual mass of Scotland itself. So we are not a small country. I think apart from Norway, if you take that into account, we're about the second largest country in Europe. And that's important because when I hear politicians talking about Scotland being small, we're not small, we're the average size country in the world. But we're not wee, because size does matter to people. And if we admit that we are small, then that is another argument that British nationalists and others will use against us. So always remember, we are big. We're much bigger than England when we take that into consideration. So the final thoughts on what this is really about. I've talked about it increasing the revenue, which I think is very, very important, so we can abolish poverty, and also that we can encourage enterprise and endeavour. But it's about the stewardship of the land. And that's something I think a lot of us probably don't think an awful lot about, is the stewardship of our land, because there has really been no cost, in owning land. And people haven't to think very much about, how they steward land, unless the land is deriving an economic benefit from such as farmers and people like that. So it's about thinking differently about the stewardship of our land, both individually and as communities. And it's also about reconnecting to the land, because the vast majority of us, live in urban areas, although there's an awful lot of people that go up the 82 past my house and other roads north and south, into the countryside, they don't actually connect with the land insofar as they either use it to grow it or to bring their children up, etc. and really get to know, the wonders of the land. And I say that as somebody who was brought up in Paisley, but we went out 19 years ago, we went out to the country at my wife's bidding, and really we have found an absolute renaissance in so many things and features of our life as a result of moving from an urban setting to the rural areas we're now in. And it's really quite interesting that I live 40 minutes from Glasgow, but an area like mine in Lothain, Arden, we have a falling population. Our population has dropped by 8% in the last 10 years. And so it doesn't mean that people have got to go very far out of urban areas to reconnect with the land. But if there was an encouragement for people to be able to build homesteads and all the rest of it, in our rural areas, then we would see a tremendous renaissance in the connection with our land and actually thinking about the land. Time in our hands, well, we're all told we're going to be living longer, etc. So we're going to have time in our hands, and land is something which you can actually spend quite a lot of enjoyable hours on yourself. So if you can acquire a small bit of land, an acre, the annual ground rent's only going to be about 70 quid a year. It's not a lot of money to think about how you use it, whether you use it, for garden or any other kind of recreational or indeed any kind of business purpose. You've got a real potential there to pass your years. There's a life-work balance and profit. One of the problems I think that we have just now is that a lot of artistic people, particularly in craft people, that can't make a living from the talents they have with a basic income. That takes the pressure off them. So it allows them to, devote time to things that they're very, very talented at doing without the pressure of feeling that, they're not going to make enough money to survive. And it also means, of course, too, that, you can spend more time, if you're a young family with your children, etc., or if you've got elderly parents, having a bit more time for them. So it's all about a kind of life-work balance. It's all part of that. And of course, there's a new economy that's developing. Although we can all be prepared and encouraged, to trade globally and all the rest of it, there is a reaction to globalisation. There is a reaction to the food miles and all this kind of stuff, and what we can actually provide for ourselves. So there again, the land, thinking of the stewardship of land, would basically help us to focus on, what we can provide for ourselves, and areas which at one time were arable and cultivated, which haven't been for a long, long while. These could come back into production. And I've called it true independence. Now, independence for me is not just our national independence, but also it's a personal thing too. That if we can feel more at home and feel more content at being independent ourselves and being able to do things for ourselves, then that is something which I think is a very positive thing as well. And because we'll be in control of our national finances, etc., that would mean that we were in a position where we can decide things, and that is the measure, I think, of independence. And finally, the Great Steward of Scotland. Does anyone know who the Great Steward of Scotland is? No? He's, as I call him, Charles Glucksberg Battenberg, in other words, Prince Charles. One of his titles is the Great Steward of Scotland, but he's not the Great Steward of Scotland, because for something like this to work, the Great Steward of Scotland's got to be the Scottish Government, because they have actually got to be, at the end of the day, the stewards of our land, our Scottish land. And if they were prepared, to bring this sort of system into place, the money which they could raise in public revenue would really be determined by them, because they would be stewarding the land, and the land which became that they had to, or that was repossessed or had been left or whatever for no use. They would be their responsibility to find a use for that land, or to find people, who were keen and able to use the land. So at the end of the day, the stewardship of Scotland would be in the hands of the Scottish Government. So I think that's me. So thank you very much for your time, and I'm delighted to any questions. And I think George will make some comments too, and I'll hide in the corner. Okay, thank you.